Hey there guys, the PC Guy here, bringing you the highlights in tech and gaming for the week as far as news go, and the first thing I want to talk about is the RTX Super lineup. I did a short video on it the other day, I didn't have a lot of time to elaborate, but I will just give you a quick recap and my thoughts on the subject. Price-wise, the ones you see on the screen are the European prices. As far as US price goes, the RTX 2060, it will be going for $399 USD, 499 USD for the 2070 Super and 699 for the 2080 Super. Keep in mind that these are the Founders Editions cards and there will still be the add-in board partner cards coming from Asus, Gigabyte, MSI and all the other slew of manufacturers that do their own cards and colors and designs. As far as performance goes, which is really what I want to talk about here as a quick overview, these cards offer excellent value when compared to the other cards that were already in circulation, the default RTX line, let's say. The 2060 Super is going to be offering performance close to a 2070, and all 2070 I mean. The 2070 Super is going to be creeping up onto the 2080, and the 2080 Super is going to be creeping up to the 2080 Ti in terms of performance. Nvidia claims around 15% to 20 increase on performance on these super graphics cards relating to the previous lineup, and that does mean that you are getting for the same price or lower, because the 2080 Super is cheaper than the 2080 was at launch. You'll be getting a lot better performance. It is comparable to the higher price tier as it was before. That is a pretty good move by Nvidia. It is probably what the RTX line should have been back in the day when it launched. They were a bit overpriced for what they were, but it's nice to see them take a step in this direction. This does mean that you probably won't see sales on these cards in the near future. You were starting to see sales on the old lineup, but even with the sales, there's not much of a point on going for the old lineup unless you really are on a budget. So these should be the cards to go right now. Keep in mind that the Radeon 5700X and XT are going to be coming out next week, so keep an open mind for that. Although at first glance it seems like Nvidia might be still the way to go, but again, wait for the actual release and for benchmarks and independent reviews to make your decision. Although at first glance, like I said, it seems like Nvidia will be the way to go for graphics cards still. An interesting decision will be if you are planning on upgrading to a higher end GPU between the 2080 Super and the 2080 Ti. It's not clear if the Ti will be getting price cuts or anything of the sort, but if the 2080 Super will be creeping up to the Ti in terms of performance at a much cheaper price, because it's a $500 difference right now in MSRP between those two, then it kind of makes you wonder if the Ti will really be worth it, because it won't be as much of a difference, and it's a $500 difference between the two GPUs. So that's definitely something that is going to be of a question for the higher end builders. Speaking of graphics cards, AMD's Radeon 5700 series has suffered a price cut before it even launched. They were originally announced to be priced at $449 for the 9700 XT and $379 for the 9700. They have been dropped to $399 and $349 respectively. This is obviously in response to the Nvidia Super launch, which is also in its own terms an answer to AMD's Radeon launch, obviously. So it's a bit of a GPU war going here. And this price cut was necessary because in terms of price performance, with the super cards in play, the Radeon, and while we don't have independent reviews and analysis yet, it seems like the Radeon cards would be pretty much dead in the water. They would be dead on arrival when the Super launched, and there would be absolutely no reason to buy them. Right now, this makes it for a point of discussion. It's still up in the air if they're going to be worth it or not at their price points. They are not high-end cards; they're middle-range cards at best, and we'll have to wait for reviews and benchmarks, obviously, but this at least makes it slightly more competitive, because the older price point and taking Super in consideration, there wouldn't be a whole lot of market for the AMD cards that way. Speaking of hardware in general, the Steam Hardware and Software Survey for June 2019 has just been released, and it gives us an insight of what people are using to game out there. The people that contribute to this survey, they all opt in on it, so it's not really a complete and unbiased, well, not really unbiased, it is unbiased obviously, but it's not a complete and general overview. So it's only from Steam gamers, and from Steam gamers only those that opt in on the survey itself, and it gives us a view what people are using out there to game specifically on Steam. As you can see, Nvidia is pretty much dominating the GPU market with 75%, with AMD having a 14%, and Intel, which I am assuming it is the discrete GPUs, with 9.5% of people that just use the sorry, not discrete GPUs, the integrated GPUs on their processors to game on whatever they game on Steam. As far as processor goes, yeah, Intel seems to be dominating as well, still with 82% against 18% from AMD. We'll see how this changes with the Ryzen lineup, because that I am confident that that will shake things up quite a bit. Another other things that we can see that are kind of trending is the increased adoption of Windows 10, with 3% increase compared to the last survey, as well as other things that we can check here. Something that is a bit more interesting to see is, for example, graphics cards. You can see here that the percentage of usage of each graphics card, and the 1060 is pretty much rocking it at the top of the charts. You can see it's very NVIDIA dominated, with the first AMD graphics card being the Radeon RX 580 with 1% of the users. But it is quite clear that the mid and low range is where most people are spending their money, and most users are. So as much as we all love to tout our high-end graphics card, and we seem to put the high performance on the pedestal, that's not really what makes these companies their money. It's the mid and lower range, obviously, because the sheer volume of sales will give them their margins. Asus has launched a trade-in program for your graphics card, where if you buy an Asus graphics card and send your old graphics card in, you do get a rebate, let's say, on your purchase, which is something interesting, because then you don't have to deal with the whole hassle of selling it secondhand, all the issues that come with it, and probably getting less money than you would for this. The possible graphics cards are divided in 3 tiers, which give separate amounts of rebate depending on how good and recent they are. And the process is simple enough. It is all explained on the website. They have it on their website. The promotion is right now only for UK, in the United Kingdom. It hopefully will be expanded so that I can do something with my old graphics card that I have lying around, and actually probably upgrade for a super graphics card in the future. It has a calculator you can check. You can select the product that you will buy. I'll just select a random one just to let you guys see. I would trade in, for example, my old 9060, and it will give you a nice calculation how much cashback you get. So 105 pounds, whatever much this is in dollars and euros, it's probably around 120, 30. I am not really sure. In any case, it's probably more than I would get if I sold it second hand, and it is a nice and simple process to upgrade the graphics card. Obviously, this locks you into Asus. This is only valid for Asus and not even in the whole world right now. Hopefully it will be expanded, but it is a very good option if you are looking to upgrade your graphics card. And in my case, I already use Asus as far as motherboard goes and a lighting system, so that would actually not be a very bad option. The world of PC game developers and resellers and publishers has once again given us some nice amount of news. A lot of game publishers, especially in the smaller range, are urging people to pirate their games instead of buying them from key reselling sites like, for example, G2A, Kingwin, and others. The argument is that they don't see much of the money anyway if you buy it through those sources, and then they have to deal with customer support with things like credit card cashbacks, fake keys, and things of the sort that just swamp them with customer support complaints and don't give them a cent because those keys were never bought from them to begin with. Uh, I do see their point. It is slightly strange to see people urging others to pirate their games. Although I do agree with one thing: if you're buying a game, you should be contributing to the people that actually made the game, and not to someone that just happened to put a key on their site. So if the point that they are trying to make is, if they are not going to get any money for you playing their game, then at least someone else is not going to be profiting from their work either, and you still get to play your game. Obviously, my official position is neither is just buy the game and support the developer directly, be it through the developer's own store if they have one, or through Steam or Epic or whatever they publish it, but not just pirate, and just don't just pirate it, and you enjoy the game, you want to support the people doing it so they again can continue producing other games, obviously. But I thought it was a bit newsworthy to see developers urging people to pirate their games as opposed to using key reselling sites. So yeah, there's that. Windows has once again issued a warning, and this is actually a long ongoing issue apparently. It is related to the registry backup that Windows uses for when something goes wrong and you want to use that backup to go back to that restore point and fix it if something goes wrong with an installation of a program or an update or something of the sort, and you want to go back. Normally those backups are done automatically, and when you do it manually you get a little pop-up window saying it was backed up successfully. Now it turns out that that backup system was not working properly at all, and you would try to go back up and the backup would not be existing there. You would, if you went manually to the folder where those backups were stored, you would see the file there from the backup, but it would be a 0 KB file that is completely empty. So that does not help you in any way, shape, or form. This was supposedly by design, not even an accident. This was supposedly by design as a way to reduce disk space. Now, considering that those backup files would cost you a few megabytes in total, I don't think this argument holds water. It might even be some sort of excuse, but if it is by design, it's a pretty lousy design because that's not the kind of thing you want to cut out to save a couple megabytes or 100 megabytes even. Considering how big storage drives are these days, that's not an argument at all. So, yeah, yeah, that's keep that in mind when relying on the registry backup and make sure your backups are done properly. This issue is prevalent since Windows 10 version 1803, and so far I have not seen any mention of it being fixed in a current or future Windows update, so the issue is still existing, and I would really find an alternative way to have a backup of your system if you want to have that safeguard. AMD has filed a patent for hybrid ray tracing, the hybrid approach. To clarify, it is, well, you have hardware-based ray tracing, which is what NVIDIA has right now on their RTX cards with the RT cores, and you have software-based ray tracing, which is no specialized hardware used for ray tracing, just the general hardware that is present on your graphics cards that is just pre-purposed, used for that purpose via software. Now, this is a hybrid approach, which uses some hardware-based solutions as well as some software-based solutions using the rest of the card. Uh, don't get too excited. You're not going to see it within the next few months or anything. It's an early patent. You might maybe see it in Navi 20 or the generation after, and there's no way to tell how successful or how effective it will be. But it is nice to see that AMD is taking steps to enter the ray tracing game. It's not widespread thing right now yet. Ray tracing in video games, there are a few out there. The performance is questionable, even with NVIDIA's specialized hardware for that. So hopefully the technology will improve in the future, and so will our gaming image quality. Now, this just about wraps up the highlights for the week. Next week we'll be having the Ryzen 3000 series and Navi, Navi or Radeon 5700, whatever you want to call it, launch date. It will be July the 7th, which is actually tomorrow, Sunday. I obviously do not get review samples or anything of the sort, so I will not be able to provide you with benchmarks and analysis and unboxings and all this sort of thing. I also am not planning to upgrade to those parts anytime soon on my own setup, so I sadly will not be able to provide my own content on that. I will, however, keep up with the news that are thrown out there by other review outlets and other reviewers and people that do their own analysis on the product. So I will kind of try to do a little sum up on that, on how good the parts are, if they're worth it or not for the people that follow my channel. But it won't be my own content, it will be conclusions drawn by from other people's research and testing. So I apologize for that, but that is the reality of running a small YouTube channel. I cannot test everything, sadly. Now, this has been Attic VC Guy with the news in tech and gaming for the week. I hope to see you guys next week. Like and subscribe. Check out my other videos I'll be throwing out in the meantime. And have fun. And if you do upgrade for the new stuff, again, wait for reviews. Don't just blindly pre order because that's the way to do it properly. Now, I'll see you next week.